The Supreme Court of Sri Lanka is the highest court of Sri Lanka. The Supreme Court is the highest and final judicial instance of record and is empowered to exercise its powers, subject to the provisions of the Constitution. The court has ultimate appellate jurisdiction in constitutional matters, and take precedence over all lower courts. The Sri Lanka judicial system is a complex blend of both common law and civil law. In some cases, such as capital punishment, the decision may be passed on to the President of the Republic for clemency petitions. History. The Supreme Court of Sri Lanka was created on the 18th of April 1801, with the Royal Charter of Justice of 1801 of King George III establishing the Supreme Courts of the island of Ceylon by the British, who controlled most of the island at the time, excluding the inland territory of Kandy. This creation was repealed in 1833 and replaced by a new charter covering the whole of the island. In 1972 the country gained its independence as Sri Lanka and adopted a new constitution. Composition. Size of the court. The court consists of the Chief Justice and not less than 6 and not more than 10 other judges, appointed by the Constitutional Council on recommendation of the President. Appointment and confirmation. The President of Sri Lanka is responsible for the appointment and removal of all the judges of the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court judges are appointed with the advice and consent of the Parliamentary Council. For the 3rd of October 2001 until 2011, with the 17th Amendment, the Constitutional Council had the task of advising the President on the appointment of the judges. If the appointment is for a period less than 14 days, this requirement will not apply. The justices are not allowed to hold any other office without the consent of the Constitution of the President. In the discharge of its functions relating to the appointment of judges of the courts, the Council may obtain the views of the Chief Justice and of the Attorney General. Tenured judges who hold office during good behavior can serve until the retirement age for the judges fixed at 65 years, as per the Constitution. They cannot be removed except by an order of the President made after an address to the Parliament and the support of the majority of its members. The order has to be presented to the President for removal on the ground of proved misbehavior or incapacity. A resolution for the presentation of the order of the President can be obtained by the Speaker or be placed on the order paper of Parliament only if notice of the resolution is signed by no less than 1/3 of the total number of members of Parliament and sets out full particulars of the alleged misbehavior or incapacity. Parliament is required to provide for all matters relating to the presentation of the address, including the procedure for the passing of the resolution, the investigation and proof of the alleged misbehavior or incapacity, and the right of the judge to appear and to be heard in person or by representative, by law or by standing orders of Parliament. A judge is not permitted to perform or hold any other office whether paid or not, or accept any place of profit or emolument, except as authorized by the Constitution or by written law or with the written consent of the President. Removal. A judge of the Supreme Court can only be removed by Parliament. However, if convicted of a criminal offense, the judge may face a jail sentence. The 2015 indictment of Justice Sarath de Abreu is the first time that a sitting Supreme Court judge has been indicted on a criminal offense. Membership. Current justices' facilities. The Supreme Court of Sri Lanka is housed in the Supreme Court of Sri Lanka building. Jurisdiction. Article 118 of the Constitution. The Supreme Court is the highest and final superior court of record and is empowered to exercise original advisory and appellate judicial functions. It is also the final court of record and the Court of Appeal of Sri Lanka. The Supreme Court has the following powers, subject to the provisions of the Constitution: jurisdiction in respect of constitutional matters, jurisdiction for the protection of fundamental rights, final appellate jurisdiction, Consultative jurisdiction. Jurisdiction in petitions relating to election of president, petitions relating to the validity of a referendum, appeals from orders, judgments of the Court of Appeal in other election petitions. Article 130. Jurisdiction in respect of any breach of the privileges of Parliament. Jurisdiction in respect of other matters which Parliament may by law vest or ordain. Appeals from judgments, sentences and orders pronounced at a High Court, trial at bar lie direct to the Supreme. Independence. Sri Lankan judiciary was considered non-independent by some analysts during the time of President Mahinda Rajapaksa. It was proved right by the impeachment of Sharani Bandaranaike. Sharani Bandaranaike, the former Chief Justice, was impeached by the Parliament for rulings against the government, including one against a bill proposed by Basil Rajapaksa, the Minister for Economic Development and the brother of President Mahinda Rajapaksa. Bandaranaike was replaced as Chief Justice by former Attorney General Mohan Peiris. Peiris is considered to be an ally of President Rajapaksa, and his appointment is seen by critics as further consolidation of power by the president and his family. Bandaranaike has refused to recognize the impeachment, and lawyers groups have refused to work with the new Chief Justice. Bandaranaike's controversial impeachment has drawn much criticism and concern from within and outside of Sri Lanka. After Maithripala Sirisena was elected as president, the appointment of Mohan Peiris was considered null and void in law because Bandaranaike's sacking by the previous government had no legal validity. Sharani Bandaranaike resumed office carrying a bouquet of flowers and being greeted by lawyers. After that, she lawfully retired, and Kanagasabapathi Sripavan was appointed as the Chief Justice. Landmark judgments. In one of the landmark judgments, Supreme Court ruled that powers over land would continue to remain vested in the central government, and not the provincial councils. The verdict assumes significance in the wake of the government's apparent reluctance to devolve land and police powers, stated in the 13th Amendment that followed the Indo-Lanka Accord of 1987, to its provinces. It practically killed the 13th Amendment.